What if we all learned today and yesterday? What have we all learned out there? It's a very important lesson. I really need you all to understand. A very important lesson, learning from experience. What we've all learned is that when I'm on at 9 p.m. for Beyond Reason Radio, that's what this is on WFLA, why in the world would you go watch Rachel Maddow? No. I don't care if she tweets out, and we've all learned now that you should not watch Rachel Maddow, especially when I'm on. I mean, you can watch clips of her later, whatever. But if I'm on, you have to watch me. And on Facebook, I'm on Facebook Live, by the way, or listen to me, Beyond Reason Radio. Me, Michael Yaffee, here on Beyond Reason Radio. Have we all learned this lesson, Tom Benson?
We have learned it.
Okay, good.
And did you hear what Rachel is revealing tonight?
Breaking exclusive, everybody. Okay, Tom Benson's got an exclusive.
Tonight,
go ahead.
Rachel Maddow's big scoop.
Uh-huh.
She's going to talk about Donald Trump's Taco Bell receipt from the year 2001.
Oh, okay. What, did he buy 57 million tacos or something?
Yeah, I think he bought one or two, yeah.
Just
he
one or two.
The $5 snack pack box,
Oh, great stuff, great stuff. Yes, we have all learned a very important lesson this week, that you should listen to your voice of reason, Michael Yaffee, and that watching Rachel Maddow at 9 p.m. is beyond reason. You have to listen to me instead. So, well, I mean, you've all heard about it today. It's been all over the place. I mean, you got to give her credit. She got some ratings last night. There's no doubt she got some ratings last night. But I keep scratching my head and thinking, why? Why did she do this other than ratings? Is that it? Because an easy way to get ratings for one night?
The Trump haters, it's red meat for them.
I mean, but
if I were one of her fans or somebody on the left, I'd be a little upset that she took us for a ride because she didn't have the payoff.
No.
There was no payoff for all the hype.
That's what's so frustrating. I mean, did she not read it ahead of time? I mean, when you watch the monologue of her talking about it and everything, there's a part of me that thinks she didn't read it. She was reading it on the air for the first time that night or something. I don't understand it. But you know what I think it really is? I mean, it was obviously a ploy to get people to watch her show that night. It was obviously a ratings ploy. People should have been concerned immediately when she took like 20 minutes and did a monologue comparing Trump to Nixon or something instead of immediately going with the exclusive. That should have been your first clue that there was something not right here. So what Rachel probably thought is that people would tune in wanting the exclusive, but her monologue would be so great. Would be just such excellent, thoughtful, intelligent stuff that people wouldn't care about the exclusive because they just love Rachel so much in her monologue.
Right.
I don't think that happened. In fact, it was weird and people just don't like you even more now. And it was great fodder for social media. In fact, you know who trolled Rachel Maddow very, very well, I have to admit, is Donald Trump Jr.
Oh, really? I missed this.
He's pretty good, I have to admit. I think he might be a rising star here in the Republican Party. He tweeted out that night, right after it, he said, breaking news. He tweeted out right after this happened. Breaking news, 12 years ago, Donald Trump made a lot of money and paid a lot in taxes.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you, Maddow. It's great stuff. It's great stuff. And then he said, I don't know much, but if I recall, $38 million is a lot more than zero, right? Thank you, Maddow. Hashtag thank you, Maddow. There's a lot of great Twitter stuff out there. Let's see what else was out there. He said, this is my favorite. He said, who else knew that Rachel Maddow was a Republican? Yeah, apparently not. Thank you, Maddow. What else is out there? He had a tweet here. There's a whole bunch of, retweeted a bunch of stuff. And this is the big one. He said, thank you, Rachel Maddow, for proving to your Trump-hating followers how successful Donald Trump is and that he paid $40 million in taxes.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So There you go. So the biggest comparison that has been out today is the comparison of this scoop of the tax return, which just proved that he paid $38 million in taxes, which was more, as everyone's pointing out, I'm sure you all heard it today, which was more than Obama paid last year, Bernie Sanders. NBC is more than Comcast has been paying. So this is a big fail. A lot of people are speculating that Donald Trump himself probably put it out there, that somebody in the Trump campaign probably put it out there. I mean, if he did, I don't know if I give him that much credit, but if he did, that is brilliant. But the only thing is, you know, if I were the Trump campaign, and I would never think that Rachel Maddow would run with this. That's what's so stunning to me. They sent it to Rachel Maddow, and I would never think she would run with it because there's nothing here, that, especially to her audience. Now, I've heard some people say that if there really was a story, Rachel Maddow would not have broke it. They would have given it to Lester Holt, and he would have broken it on the nightly news. So that should have been another clue, maybe.
Well, supposedly, either he's a reporter now or was a reporter for the New York Times, got the return. And
in the mail.
He took it to Rachel.
Yep.
Why he took it to Rachel, I don't know.
Well, because they hate Trump, I guess. I don't know. I mean, Rachel's ratings have gone up a little bit, but this ruins her credibility a lot. But this is being compared to, by a lot of people, to the infamous Geraldo Rivera special with Al Capone's vault. When they looked into Al Capone's vault and they found nothing, immediately all over social media, people compared it to that. So we have to see what Geraldo Rivera thinks about this. I mean, this is the most important commentary of who thinks about this whole Rachel Maddow tax return Trump out there thing. By the way, Trump is still denying that anyone in his campaign had anything to do with releasing it and still saying it's illegal that they released it. So that's still out there as well. But Geraldo Rivera was on Fox News recently and today, I'm sorry, and talked about his thoughts about this whole thing, the comparison to opening the vault, and talking about how this is similar. Play the first cut of Geraldo Rivera on Fox News talking about this today.
I knew that everybody had tuned in, and I wanted to bury myself in the hole when I found nothing. But I tell you what I did find was ratings, and I think Rachel Maddow also will discover the ratings inside the empty vault. Yeah. But I think that because she made fun of me
it is an
when
empty
I said
vault.
that maybe I had some Trump tapes during that whole Access Hollywood thing, and then I did not deliver. She made fun of me and said it was Al Capone's vault all over again. I submit to you that Rachel Maddow now has the mantle of the Al Capone vault.
So not only, I didn't even know this part, not only did Rachel, open an empty vault, but she's a hypocrite criticizing others of opening empty vaults earlier when she eventually does the same exact thing.
You know, that Al Capone vault was opened up 31 years ago already. It was 1986.
Yeah, before I was, right when I was born.
Wow, that's time just marches on fast,
Yes, it does. Now, Geraldo Rivera continued on with his commentary about what was found in this tax return, and this is what he said.
Well, I thought it was very meaningful. I thought that, first of all, that President Trump should get a new tax attorney because he's paying twice the rate Mitt Romney paid. It was so favorable to the president that I thought for a second that maybe he planted it.
I know.
That Rachel Maddow would do this big reveal. I think, by the way, that's why she was so tentative in her delivery just there, because she knew that the bottom line was it belied every notion that MSNBC has been promulgating that Trump is a tax dodger. That's why he hasn't released his tax returns.
Or that he's not rich. I mean, that's the other.
Or that he's not rich.
Yeah, it also proved that he's filthy rich. I mean, this is great. This is great stuff. I can't get enough of this. I just don't understand what they were thinking. I really don't get it, other than just trying an easy way to get ratings. I don't know. 407-916-5400, text to 23680. Go ahead and play the third cut of Geraldo for me, Tom Benson.
MSNBC is doing its job. Rachel Maddow is a fine broadcaster, but there is no doubt that this ricocheted, that this favored Donald Trump. It took the Obamacare debate off the front pages for a while.
It did.
The whole Russian hacking business also was, at least for the day, put to the side. And listen, I would love to be in a situation where I paid $38 million.
Yeah, me too, right? I made $150 million. I love the take he said in the earlier cut where he's like, he needs a better tax attorney. Maybe that's why Trump won't release his tax returns, because they don't want him to be embarrassed about how much he did pay and could have paid less or something. So there we go. This is obviously a big win for Trump. It has taken away from some of the Obamacare, Trump care stuff. That's right. I know everyone wants to call it Ryan care. No. It's Trump care, okay? Trump has been pushing this. He says he's helped put it together. No, we're not. Trump's not going to get away with this. This is Trump care. And we're going to talk about more about that later in the show. There's actually a lot of important stuff I have to get to in the show. We have to get to the fact that another judge blocked Trump's second travel ban and that whole controversy, which is just, it's predictable and it's ridiculous. And, of course, it's beyond reason. Also, some interesting stories out there about how we might be headed to another subprime mortgage bubble, which I've been talking about on this show since I started, about how I'm concerned about this and how I wish we could change a lot of this stuff. So there's a lot to get to today. And you know what's really interesting about this whole tax return thing as well? What's fascinating is how the left is trying to spin this now, almost immediately. Almost right after this happened, Vox, the liberal site, they tweeted out, well, this asks the other question then, what is he hiding? It's like, well, if this is nothing, then why doesn't he release the rest of it? What is he hiding? You love how they spin it, like immediately.
Sure.
And they can't, they've lost. They've lost this one. Just admit you lost on this one. Move on with our lives. 407-916-5400, text to 23680. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, and we will be right back.
You want to listen to Beyond Reason Radio live on your smartphone? Download the Beyond Reason Radio app now. Available in the Google Play or Apple App Stores. The voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason is back now.
Yes, welcome back to Orlando Smart Talk Radio. This is your alternative to fake news, Rachel Maddow. The lesson we all learned is that you should listen to me when I'm on at 9, not her. It's a good lesson. So I always appreciate, by the way, this is Michael Yaffee. I'm on Facebook Live as well. Make sure to send me a friend request on Facebook. Just search Michael Yaffee. Send me a friend request. I will accept it. You can call 407-916-5400, text to 23680. So I always appreciate a good Twitter troll, Tom Benson. And we were talking about Donald Trump Jr. trolling Maddow. Mm-hmm. Well, I just looked up Mike Huckabee trolling, and his stuff is fantastic.
Oh, really?
This is quality stuff. This is what he started saying yesterday. He goes, this is great stuff. He says, tomorrow night, Rachel Maddow solves the Kennedy assassination. We'll name Oswald as assassin. Don't miss real journalism.
That's about right.
It goes on. It's great. Newsflash, Rachel Maddow knows who won the 2016 World Series and will spend 30 minutes of her next show teasing the winner. Don't miss it. Rachel Maddow will reveal who shot J.R. Ewing on the series Dallas. Sure it was in the 80s, but it's Rachel Maddow.
She just got the news.
Here's another one. NBC on fire with news scoops this week. Rachel Maddow will uncover mystery as to what happened to the long-lost Titanic. Stop the press. This is so good. Okay, Rachel Maddow has a real huge story. Donald Trump is a rich man and paid a boatload of taxes in 2005. Oh, my, we never knew he was rich.
Yeah.
It goes on. Says Rachel Maddow will release her tax returns on her show tomorrow, or maybe not. Why not? Might show how much the Russians paid her. Says a crack journalist at CNN, fake journalist, guest saying Trump sneaked his own taxes on him. Best comedy on TV. This is great stuff. Then he says tax returns we'd really like to see 9 MSNBC anchors with tax liens against them.
Ooh.
That's a good one. Another one. Rachel Maddow tonight reveals Amelia Earhart and Jimmy Hoffa are found. They married and had a child, Snoop Dogg, who paid no taxes ever. And then he says the best answer for tax returns, the fair tax. Mm-hmm. Want to get rid of tax returns, implement the fair tax. Actually, I think that's a good point. Okay, Okay, moving on to more important things. I know we were having way too much fun, but moving on to more important things, it came out just within the last couple hours that another judge, the Hawaii federal judge, has released a temporary restraining order on Trump's travel ban. Shocker. A federal judge doesn't like Trump's travel ban. What do you know? Oh, even though he changed it, they found a way to ban it again. See, this is the problem here. There was a lot of criticism in Trump's first travel ban. That it was rushed. It wasn't written correctly. And, if they just rewrite it and have a better one, then the judges they'll never go against it. No, they'll say, oh, it's fine. The president has the authority, and then they'll just do it, right? So what does he do? He rewrites it and then gets rid of a lot of the stuff they criticized. And, of course, what happened? The left brought a bunch of lawsuits, and a judge stopped it again. This is so ridiculous. This is all just proof that this is all about politics. That's all it is. They don't like Trump. They disagree with his policies. It's not about the law. It's not about really interpreting the law. It's about their own personal opinions against Trump. So no matter what Trump does, they'll be against it. I mean, frankly, it said that. So the ruling was done in the Hawaiian federal court. What was their reason for doing this? Well, he argued that the new executive order discriminated on the base of religion. It says because a reasonable objective observer would conclude that the executive order was issued with a purpose to disfavor a particular religion in spite of its stated religious neutral purpose. Wait, so the ban says in it that it does not discriminate against a particular religion? In fact, it's not a part of the actual law implemented here at all. And yet we're saying, well, we know what he really meant. Well, we know what he really meant here. Here's what it actually says.
They're probably figuring that most of the people that would emigrate from those countries are Muslim anyway, so it's got to be against them. It's got to be to ban Muslims.
I don't like that argument because there are many countries that are not a part of this ban that are majority Muslim, and they have full rights to emigrate here. This is all about politics, people. And the court even recognizes it, that it doesn't ban religion, but it's making its own interpretation anyway. They continue on saying that they say that Trump's purposes aren't veiled. The court says that perhaps sometime in the future, Trump will have talked nicely about Islam, that the ban could become permissible, but not now. So once again, they're interpreting Trump's thoughts rather than the actual law. This stuff is just ridiculous. So, but of course, it's just a temporary thing. And the judge also backed up earlier court fully claim that states can negate federal immigration policy by complaining that they won't be able to recruit students or maintain levels of tourism. The state has preliminarily demonstrated that its universities will suffer monetary damages and intangible harms. The state's economy is likely to suffer a loss of revenue due to a decline in tourism. That was another reason for this temporary injunction on this immigration ban. Does that mean we should just accept all illegal immigration? Because think about this, if we build a wall on the border, you could argue that some businesses will be hurt. Mm-hmm. Some businesses who hire illegal immigrants, they'll be hurt, and it could have negative economic impact on the states. And so even though it's federal law and the federal government has the absolute authority to do these things and to control immigration, it's actually there, and it's actually written law. You could just make the argument, well, it could hurt the sanctuary cities who rely on them. It's a silly argument. And once again, it's all about politics. So what's going to happen now? There's no way Trump can rewrite it again. So they're going to have to fight it in court. So hopefully they fight it in court and they win. But this stuff is just getting out of control. And people wonder why a lot of conservatives don't trust these courts. There are talks now that the Congress should break up a lot of these courts because these courts have gone beyond their constitutional authority and are basically stopping one branch of the government from being able to do anything. These courts are not the final arbiter in a lot of these decisions. 407-916-5400, text to 23680. We have a lot more to get to. Rand Paul has a very interesting piece in Breitbart today that he wrote that says we should just totally get rid of this Obamacare light thing. Totally break the glass of it, he says. Also, are we headed towards a new subprime mortgage crisis? Seems like a lot of evidence that we're at least heading in a very dangerous direction in that regard. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I am your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
Listen to the latest episodes of Beyond Reason. Download the podcast at Spreaker.com. The conscience in your ear telling you the difference between right and wrong. Yaffee is back on the air.
Yes, little did you know that conscience in your ear telling you the difference between right and wrong as we speak is me, Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. I appreciate you joining the show. This is Beyond Reason Radio. We will be on tomorrow night as well, and we will be on in prime time. So 7 p.m. tomorrow night, 7 to 9 p.m. right here on WFLA. I'll be on Facebook Live as well, so you'll definitely want to join me then as well. If you miss any of the show, make sure to catch the podcast of the show. You can catch the podcast of the show anywhere podcasts are available. Best thing to do is download the Beyond Reason Radio app at the Google Play or Apple App Store, or you can find it on iHeartRadio app as well. Just download the iHeartRadio app and search Beyond Reason Radio. So I know this is not making big headlines right now, and I know this is not the juiciest thing out there, but I think this is actually incredibly important, and it's a big concern of mine and has been for a long time. Now, in terms of the economic crisis of 2007 and 2008, I've read a ton of books on this subject, on what really caused that crisis, that economic crisis in 2008 when the stock market imploded, when credit basically seized up. And there is no doubt about it that pretty much any book you read, it's solely the responsibility, well, not solely, but a lot of this has to do with, of course, those government-sponsored entities, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, encouraging through the Department of Housing and Urban Development, through federal regulations, through all kinds of politics involved in the background to encourage these government-sponsored entities to do, plus the implicit government guarantee behind them. They encouraged these government-sponsored entities, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, to start buying tons of these subprime loans, securitizing them, and selling them off. Not only that, but they encouraged them over and over again to get rid of a lot of the standards that made it viable. A lot of the standards. So basically, people were buying homes that couldn't afford it. That's basically what it is. We all know this. They were buying homes that couldn't afford it, and all it took was something like gas prices going up and up and up, and people had to pay more for gas, and they had to pay more for other things, and they couldn't afford their loans anymore. So all the loans were going under. And, of course, the banks were heavily invested in this. Well, and why wouldn't they be? Because the banks could get about these loans and just sell them off to Fannie and Freddie. And they could have all these securities. And then, of course, it also relies with the Fed. The Fed artificially kept interest rates low for years after the 2000.com bubble burst and all kinds of stuff. So you have the federal government deeply involved in both of these cases. And a lot of it was done over politics. And you just look at the stats instance. And just look at this stat. In 2008, Fannie Mae had, and of course my computer just, come on. Sorry, computers. My computer just froze. Okay. In 2008, they found that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac had more than half of all mortgages in the U.S., and they were subprime. So actually, I take that back. 2008, more than half of all mortgages in the U.S. were subprime or otherwise risky. And 76% of those were on government agencies' books. So you have 76% of subprime loans were on government agencies' books. That tells you everything right there. It was these government agencies that were pushing the subprime subprime thing. The reason why I'm bringing this up today, I know I did a little bit of economic history lesson, is there was a story in CNN in the opinion section by a guy named William Poole. And he said this. Here's the headline. Are we heading toward another subprime mortgage crisis? I hope not. But he makes the point that we actually are. He points out that basically in 2007 and in 2008, there were already reports out that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, these government-sponsored entities, were basically insolvent by the end of 2007. Today, the Fed, he says, is once again ignoring these government-sponsored entities and their potential contribution to future instability. According to Freddie's 2016 annual report, expanding access to affordable mortgage credit will continue to be a top priority in 2017. Fannie and Freddie have redefined subprime to a credit rating of below 620. These firms and banking regulators had used 660 as the dividing line that defined a subprime borrower, but what did they do? So we never learned from history. So they made 660 the credit limit, and they're like, you know what, we're not giving enough loans out there. The government just isn't helping more people get houses, people that can't afford it. So what do? They lower the standards. They lower it to 620. This is exactly what happened before. The mortgage lenders, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, were not on the same standards as everyone else. They had lower standards. It was being pushed by the Housing and Urban Development Department, and it was being pushed by the federal government to do that for political reasons. He continues on here in the piece. He says, in the crisis, the Fed was overwhelmed by events because it was not paying adequate attention to the subprime debt and had no contingency plans. He said Timothy Geithner, president of the New York Fed at the beginning of the crisis and the secretary of the Treasury, was one of the financial crisis managers. He explained Fed policy with great clarity in his 2014 book, Stress Tests. He says, we're lurching all over the place and no one had any idea what to expect next. So all these really smart people in Washington, like Timothy in the New York Fed and all these other places like Hank Paulson, Ben Bernanke, and Timothy Geithner did not see this coming. Of course, there's a part of me that thinks they did see some of this coming because right before this happened, you know what they did? They basically passed a law that made it possible for the government to completely bail out Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. That happened right before the crash. Why would they do that? They said they did it just be a worst case scenario at the time. No, they did it because they saw that there was problems coming. The point of this is that they're making the same mistakes today. He says, where are we today? Few observers believe the Fed has clearly articulated strategy on its adjusting the Fed's fund rate, which is likely to be the subject of announcement at the end of this week, yada, yada, yada. The rate is the principal policy tool determining the degree of monetary policy stimulus. Equally important, how and when will the Fed deal with its bloated portfolio, yada, yada, yada. He says in Freddie's 2016 annual report, the agency says 36% of its obligations are credit enhanced, meaning they carry mortgage insurance of one sort or another, which is typically used for weaker mortgages. The insurance against default is only as good as the enhancing firms, and none is rated above BBB+. If these weak subprime mortgages begin to fail in large numbers, so also will the insuring companies. I know this is a lot of details, and I'm trying not to get too much in the weeds here, but this is what I'm trying to point out to you and what he's pointing out to you in this. Basically, we're making the same mistakes of the past. You had, before 2008, you had this beyond reason belief that it was the government's job to make sure that everyone get a home loan. What they did is they encouraged it through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which are government-sponsored entities, which are run through the Department of Housing and Urban Development, to make it way too easy to get these loans to people who couldn't afford it. It seemed to work at first. People were making a lot of money at first, so this expanded. But, of course, it all collapsed because people eventually stopped paying their mortgages. And especially when gas prices went up and other prices went up, they just stopped paying their mortgages. So all this stuff backed by these mortgages collapsed. So you think we would have learned our lesson? You think we would have tightened lending standards in these institutions? But once again, we are headed in the same direction where we are not tightening it. We are making it easier to get these home loans through these institutions. Here's an idea. Long story short, here's an idea. Let's get rid of them. How about we get rid of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac? Would somebody please tell me why we need them? Why do we need them? Why do we need government-sponsored entities to give out home loans in the first place? Where is it the role of the federal government to give out home loans? Easy answer, it's not. All we have to do is break up Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, in my opinion, and sell them off to private firms and let the actual marketplace deal with these things. Because when the marketplace, once again, has to deal with these things, you don't have politics behind it. And you don't have this problem. And you don't have people, the main reason why a lot of these private firms were giving out a lot of these subprime mortgages is because it was very easy to put them in packages and sell them to these government-sponsored entities. Then they didn't have to worry about them as much anymore.
And they also made big fees going through the whole process.
Oh, yeah, they made big fees going through the process.
Yeah.
But it was all backed by the federal government, making everyone believe that it was the job of the federal government to give home loans.
And it also took the risk off the banks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you take the risks off the banks. You have government-sponsored entities that do not have the same lending standards as everyone else. They're buying huge amounts of subprime mortgages. In fact, 76% of the subprime mortgages were in the hands of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac? That's a crazy number. Think about that. If those institutions did not exist, if this was fully in the private sector, we would not have had this problem. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. So there has been actually some pushback on this. The Washington Examiner had a great story a few weeks ago that I actually posted on my Facebook, so you should send me a friend request on Facebook, and you will see a lot of these kind of stories. There is a mortgage industry group that is actually pushing to free Fannie and Freddie from the federal government. The Mortgage Bankers Association, a key housing industry trade group, plans to lobby Congress and the Trump administration to effectively turn Fannie and Freddie into private utilities and to allow new entrants to compete with them on the same terms. Now, what does that tell you? First off, private entrants cannot compete with them on the same terms right now. How is that fair? You talk about fairness. You have the government-sponsored entities. They do not compete on the same terms. So there is a group that's saying, hey, privatize them, let them compete on the same terms, and we won't have a lot of these problems. I say just break them up and sell them and get rid of them completely. End Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and you won't have these problems. It is not the role of the federal government to make sure you can afford a house. I'm sorry. And this is exactly what we're doing in healthcare, is it not? It is the exact same thing we're doing in healthcare, and we think, well, we're not going to have any ramifications in healthcare. It's exactly what it's going to happen. It's already happening. What happened? The government decided it needed to be more involved in the health insurance industry. They added all these new regulations, and what happened? Premiums went up. Premiums exploded. People can't afford it on the individual market. Costs are going up. Once again, the federal government completely involved. They should not be involved in the housing industry. They should not be involved in the healthcare industry. And by the way, they shouldn't be involved in the student loan industry either, which is the same thing is happening in the student loan industry. Right now, you have a bubble being created in the student loan industry because we believe it's the federal government's job to make sure everyone gets a college degree. So now the federal government is completely in control of the student loan industry. And what's happening? A bubble. And the bubble's going to burst. And right now, you have a majority of kids in college who believe the federal government will and should bail them out. Just like they did with the banks and through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, just like they did with that, just like they're going to do with healthcare, just like they're going to do in the student loan industry. It's now happening. It's all happening again. We haven't learned our lesson. This is why I get behind this microphone and I try to argue the proper role of government. 407-916-5400, text to 23680. A lot more to get to. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
Your voice of truth in a world of fake news. Beyond Reason Radio continues right now.
All right, this is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. I thank you all for joining me so far. If you missed any of the show, make sure to check the podcast of the show anywhere podcasts are available. There is a great piece by Rand Paul out there talking about how we don't need this Trump care. We don't need this Obamacare light. And you know what? I'm going to save that for tomorrow. So what I want you to do, exclusive tomorrow. Okay, it's not really an exclusive, but hey, I mean, if Rachel Maddow can do it, I can promise big things, right? Right? And underdeliver. Yeah, it works. Right. That's the lesson we learned from her. But no, the reason why I want to say that tomorrow, I'm going to be on tomorrow, 7 to 9 p.m. So definitely check me out tomorrow, 7 to 9 p.m. But there's something else that was kind of brought to my attention that I want to get into a little bit and has to do with history. I'm very into history. You know me. I read a lot of history. And this was actually an argument that came out in around 2011 and 2012 that I had not heard of before. And it's coming out again because it's in the news again. People on the left are saying that there is a precedent for the individual mandate, the healthcare individual mandate. Because people like me said it was completely unconstitutional, and even though the Supreme Court tried to say, well, it's constitutional because it's a tax, it's not a tax. First, forcing someone to buy insurance is not the same as taxing them. Okay, so there's articles out there that you can find that says Congress passed socialized medicine and mandates in 1970 or 1798 under John Adams. Okay, that's a pretty bold statement. That what they're basically saying is the founders of the Constitution would have supported the individual mandate, right? Well, what are they talking about? They're talking about an act for the relief of sick and disabled seamen. The law authorized the creation of a government-operated marine hospital service and mandated the privately employed sailors be required to purchase health care insurance. That's what he said, right? That is incredibly misleading. I got this from that quote was from Forbes. It's incredibly misleading. You want to know why? Because they did not force them to buy health insurance. What they did is they basically taxed the heads of the shipmasters and the people on the ships. They basically taxed them and used the revenue from that tax to pay for these hospitals. That was a tax, so you can maybe say it's similar to Medicare where you have a tax and then you can use the benefits from a tax. The other reason why this is a very bad argument, and you don't want to go down this road if you're the left, is because they didn't force everybody to buy something. The whole insurance mandate under Obamacare forces you to purchase something for merely being alive, for merely existing. For merely being born, you have to purchase health insurance. This only required a tax on merchants, a specific part. So it's similar to like car insurance. States require people who own cars to buy car insurance. If you don't want car insurance, you don't have to buy a car. If you don't want to pay this tax and you don't want to be a part of this medical system, you just not be a merchant. So it's not the same thing as an individual mandate for everyone. That's the next point. The third point I want to make. This was the same Congress, and this is what I talk about. Don't just read articles and say, oh, whoa, I know everything about history now. I want you to go and read books. You know, those big things you can buy at the store with pages and have sources and actually get the context of what you're talking about. And don't just read an article and point it out there. Actually understand context of the times. Sorry, it's just something that really frustrates me on social media. When you read about that time, you will also know that that's the same Congress that passed the Alien and Sedition Acts. I'm pretty sure now the Sedition Acts basically arrested people for saying something negative against the government. It basically gave the federal government the authority to arrest people for saying something negative against the government. That was the Sedition Acts. That was passed by the same exact Congress that passed this bill. So if we're going to go down the road that the founders would have loved the individual mandate, and this is proof, I'm pretty sure the left and the right are against Sedition Acts. So I would not go down that road. The second thing I want to go down is, for one, this was based a lot on national security. Now, when they passed this law, we don't know a roll call. So there were some founders in the Congress at the time, and I mean, some people from the Constitutional Convention were a part of this Congress as well. We don't know how many of them actually voted for this because there wasn't a roll call of that vote. But this was done mainly for national security purposes and the Commerce Clause because we were so dependent on trade with other countries at that time. But what I want to point out with you is that a lot of things were extremely controversial. James Madison, who is considered the father of the Constitution because he was pretty much instrumental in setting up the Constitutional Convention. Him and Thomas Jefferson were so against the Alien and Sedition Acts that they believed that states should probably nullify the Alien and Sedition Acts and go against it because they believed it was unconstitutional. Why did they believe it was unconstitutional? Because they didn't see anywhere in the Constitution that gave the federal government the authority to do these things. In fact, if you know anything about Thomas Jefferson, and especially James Madison specifically stated that if it was not a part of the enumerated powers in the Constitution, then it was not legal. So you're telling me that a lot of these people, and by the way, the Alien Sedition Acts pretty much put Thomas Jefferson in the presidency and pretty much put the Republican Democrats in the presidency and pretty much got rid of the Alien and Sedition Acts. My point is this. It's good to understand context. So do you honestly think that someone like James Madison or many of the framers in the Constitution who believed that even Hamilton's national bank plan was unconstitutional because there was no authority in the Constitution to give to do that, do you honestly believe that those same people would say, oh, well, an individual mandate requiring everyone to buy health insurance in the country for merely being born, oh, that's perfectly constitutional? Do you honestly think those people would believe that? No. In fact, Madison was so radical, he didn't even want the Bill of Rights a part of the Constitution. He didn't think they were necessary because the Congress had no enumerated powers to go against those rights. What's my point on this? There is nothing in the Constitution that gives them the authority to mandate that you purchase health insurance. And there were many of the founders and constitutional framers at the time who argued that the Congress cannot go beyond the enumerated powers of the Constitution. It was hotly debated at the time. If you read history and understand the context, you would know that. And you would know that there is no way someone like James Madison or Thomas Jefferson would believe that the federal government has the authority to force you to buy health insurance. This whole 1798 Act forcing merchant marines to be taxed to provide for their health care is completely different. Read context before you comment on things. All right, this is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. A lot of deep stuff today. I hope you enjoyed the show. I will be back tomorrow at 7 p.m. Make sure to send me a friend request on Facebook or follow me on Twitter at Beyond Reason R. And well, I'll catch you guys next time.